Hi guys, really happy to be here, and I've been very eager to share some of my secrets with you. As Tim said, I'm one of the founders of Unaterra. We are a circular economy early growth fund. What does that mean? If you're from the VC space, it basically means we're looking for Series A investments. So that's young companies that have developed a particular technology. They're ready to scale. There's no more pivoting around how it's going to work. They know roughly where the audience is, and we help them grow. Tim already mentioned it, my background is actually similar to the background of, let's say, many of the partners inside Unaterra, as we do not come from a finance industry. We do have one finance, partner, but most of us come from an industrial background. I spent my life working, in between R&D, production, and marketing, just to get products to actually work successfully, to even make them possible. I think I'd like to highlight, maybe before I dive in and share some of the, some of the secrets that I'm now going to make public. It's all about recognizing what is a good idea and what is a bad idea, is what circular economy actually means. Because it's a bit of a big bucket word, could mean many things. And I think a couple of things to keep in mind is, first of all, it's not about creating a new economy. The circular economy is about basically making the existing one more circular. And I was actually funny listening to the fireside chat earlier today, talking about supply chain not being very sexy. I find supply chain to be very sexy. And why is that? First of all, it's because it's huge. If you just think about any physical product around you, the clothes you're wearing, the chair you're sitting on, everything here in this room, I mean, just think about what does it take to make a shirt like this? Say, between maybe growing cotton or creating the seeds that will grow the right cotton, through to processing the fibers, making the garment, selling it, there's probably between 50 and 100 different suppliers, businesses involved to make it happen. And every single one of those, handovers between one business and the next is an opportunity to use a little less energy, to create a little less waste, and basically make it more circular. So if you multiply that by all the things you have around you, you realize this is absolutely infinite in size. And every single one of them is a business opportunity. So what I'd like to share basically is how this works. So it's a bit more of a sort of a grassroots up story versus what we've heard before, which indeed is sort of what do you need top down to make this work in your business. And if anything, what to take away from this is the circular economy is a very nice place to be when it comes to investing. We're right now raising 200 million euros. And it's going to be quite easy to spend it all on good opportunities. Let me share a couple of secrets. So the first secret, I have no better example than this. These are two red cars, as you can see. They're also both electric. They can carry around about as many people. Now my question to you would be, would you be able to guess which of these two is successful and which of the two isn't? So we have the Chevrolet EV1 on the left, and we have the Tesla 3 on the right. You can probably guess it's the one on the right. But then I'm going to ask you, why do you think that is? Why is the one on the left not a good idea to invest in, and the one on the right is? And of course, it has nothing to do with being electric, being more circular, maybe not even with the range of, how far the car can go on that battery. What the one on the right does, it delivers on being a great car, first and foremost. The one on the left doesn't. You want to be seen in the one on the right, you do not want to be seen in the one on the left. And this is true across everything related to investing in sustainability in general, in green ideas in general, in impact, and in particular in the circular economy. Because again, it's an existing economy. 99% of what you need to make your product work already exists, including the sales and marketing side. So if you're selling a car that is more circular, first of all, make sure it's a great car. And this, if anything, is one of the things that is dramatically overlooked by a lot of startups and scale-ups in this space who think, I'm going to sell because I am more sustainable, I am more circular, I'm this, I am that. No, first and foremost, you need to deliver at the expectations of the category itself. Now, each of these principles I will back up with a story, or actually an example, of a business we've invested in ourselves. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, just to make that totally clear. And hopefully I'll be putting your money where my mouth is just as much. Here's an example of a business doing exactly that. This is Another Tomorrow. If you want to look them up, www.anothertomorrow.co, not com, but co. And this is a business we've invested in. Actually, they're growing very quickly here in the Gulf area now. High-end women's fashion. Very, very desirable fashion. You needn't even know they have just about the cleanest supply chain backing them up that is even possible in fashion, because it's not relevant. If you're buying beautiful garments, the garments should be beautiful. Having them being good for the, say, for the planet is secondary. So I really recommend you look them up. What keeps surprising me, because I'm of course a bloke, as you can see, I'm not particularly specially dressed, but like a typical website visit of any lady visiting this website leads to about $800 to $900 in sales. And they're only buying like 2 or 3 garments for that. So again, you can make a lot of money in this. Now again, why are they circular? Why did we invest in them? Is because they've built their whole business around simplifying supply chain. If you think about how typical, say, fashion or garments are made, there's a huge number of different materials being sewn together. It's a very complicated process. You need to do it at a massive scale to make money, and you end up with stuff which is literally unrecyclable because all these different materials are sewn together. Another Tomorrow has based their whole collection, so literally every garment they produce and they have in the market at any given moment in time, on just 2 materials. There's an organic wool and an organic cotton, and everything is basically made with those. And what they found, even in hindsight, not even designing for it, but when they did a life cycle analysis on their fabrics, it's actually sequestering carbon. So the more they make, the less carbon is left in the environment. It's just incredible if you think about it that way. But they took that all the way to, you could say, its logical conclusion, because how does a normal fashion business, particularly in the high end like this, work? Every year or every season, there's a whole new collection being put to market, which basically means everything that was produced and wasn't sold gets thrown away. In their case, they keep the same collection all through the year, but they sometimes take 1 or 2 garments out and they replace them by a couple of new ones, which means also if you're a lady into this style, you're always going to remain in style because there will also always be something interesting new to buy and, say, complement your wardrobe with. If you are tired of some of the things in your wardrobe, because of course the quality is exquisite, you can basically tap into the anothertomorrow.co website, say, I would like to resell these back. And they will go back to Another Tomorrow, who basically have a whole, let's say, regeneration platform, is maybe a way, it's basically resell of second-hand garments. And of course, the women buying those know it will still fit the collection I already have. So they've taken this all the way through to its logical conclusion in a way, and they've kind of rethought how to be in fashion if you are a sustainable business, a more circular business, rather than doing it the old way. Here's another truth to keep in mind. It builds a little bit on what I just mentioned. Well, you are familiar with Nutella, and you've probably already been familiar for at least 10, 20, maybe even 30 years that like 1/3 of Nutella is sugar. And even though that is the case, you keep eating it. It's bad for your teeth, makes your bum this big, but you keep eating it. Now, more recently, people have started understanding that actually of the other 2/3, 1/2 of that, so another third, is palm oil, which means basically every sandwich with Nutella you eat, that's another orangutan going homeless in Borneo. Do people stop eating Nutella? No. It's because the vast majority, the masses, do not care that much. So it's another, say, reasoning to give you that if you lead with a sustainability story, or if a business you're looking to invest in says the sustainability angle is the reason why that's going to work, you should walk away, because that's not going to be the reason. The people who are bothered by the palm oil have already stopped consuming Nutella a long time ago, and it's a very small niche of people. A word connected to this is behavior change. A lot of, say, narrative of startups and scale-ups in this domain is all about creating behavior change such that people will buy our products. No, it's the other way around. Your product needs to be so good, it leads to a behavior change, which sounds similar, but it's actually fundamentally different. And some of the examples I have, say, build on that. So don't hope you can sell on sustainability alone or on circularity alone. What you should look at instead is, again, the category truths, which I kind of referred to with the car example. And again, even if you don't know a particular industry very well, and you're sort of exploring, okay, what does this business do? How's it going to work? You can very quickly, literally on a napkin in a restaurant, write down what are the sort of the drivers for adoption of this solution, and what are the barriers to adoption of this solution. And surprisingly or disappointingly, again, a lot of startups and scale-ups think of usually only the left side. So I've just written a couple of these down. I can lift a few out just as an example, but the top row here is business to consumer. So this is end user products. Business to business, where of course the bulk of the opportunity exists. And they're kind of similar, but if you think about some of the drivers, what's going to make someone buy a product? What will they be looking for? Well, they'll be looking to remove a frustration maybe they have. Because again, we're talking existing economies, we're talking where whatever product you're introducing is not going to be launched in a vacuum. It's going to have to convince someone to stop using another product and come to yours. So the way to do that is indeed driving excitement, removing frustrations, delivering convenience. If your product is less convenient to use, it will not sell. It's very simple. But again, a lot of the narrative around, oh, this is such an important topic, just to get more sustainable, people will put more work in to get it. No, they won't. Yeah, 1% of people will do that. You're not going to make money on 1% of an audience. Similar thinking in sort of the business to business, and again, it's a topic so easily overlooked, is what is going to stop, let's say, a business from buying a new ingredient or a new material? And in business to business, it's even harder. And why is that? Because it's a much more commercial decision. If an organization needs to choose basically a new supplier, and even just saying new supplier, that's usually a nightmare for a whole group of people in a business, but you're going to buy this new supplier product because it's more sustainable, more circular, then that switch is going to have to pay for the switch. So the performance needs to be better, it probably needs to be cheaper, it needs to do all these things that's going to make it really easy. And let me give you an example which I recently came across. This was a business that was basically working in pigments for paint. Absolutely gigantic market. I mean, just think about it. Every surface that is covered around you has some kind of colorant put in to give it that sort of appearance. So it's a huge industry. And this business had made something really interesting, very smart on sort of creating a colorant type, but it was a powder. Now, the market they were looking at, which was decorative paints, works with liquids. So if you have a colorant that is a powder, no matter how green it is, the producer of the paint won't be able to use it unless they invest a fortune, no matter how good it is. And that's an example here of a block for a business-to-business solution is requiring new supply chain infrastructure, new lines. It's just a reason the project will end, no matter how good the story is around it. And to give you an example of what this turns into, here's a business. This was the first investment that Luca, my fellow founder of Unaterra, and I did together. It basically paid for almost all the examples you're seeing, the success of this one. Pulpix is, as you can see, it's a paper bottle. It's based on paper pulp. And at the time, I knew them through Diageo, which is a spirits business you might be aware of. They use this for Johnny Walker special editions. You might remember them. If you've seen them, you'll remember. It's these beautiful black paper bottles for whiskey. Why was this interesting? Well, first of all, they created basically a recyclable bottle to replace the PET or glass single-use bottles. But at the time, we could have invested in like 40 different paper bottle companies. And on paper, many of them would look better because they would not only be recyclable, for example, they would also be home compostable and things like that. These were so-so. Let's say they were 80%. Great. But they had one benefit, is you could fill them on a normal line. So a business like Diageo, who has like several hundred million invested in filling lines, could just, with some small adaptations, start running a pilot with them. And then, of course, well, with the networks Luca and myself have, once we invested in this, we also said, hey, dear friend at PepsiCo, dear friend at Estée Lauder, dear friend at Unilever, have a look at this. At least here's an example of a paper bottle. Might not be perfect. You can run it through the paper recycling stream, but that's just about it. But at least you can fill it on a normal line. So again, using existing infrastructure is an absolute must for what we look at, because it takes all the pain away of launching and then scaling. Because why would you rely on building new factories if all the factories are already there? It's literally the production capacity you can then use to scale your product is absolutely huge. Here's another principle. This is and I'll explain the lawnmower in a moment. But if you look over time, how products evolve, there's really only 4 dimensions. And by the way, I've been trying to disprove this for 20 years, didn't succeed. There are only 4 dimensions along which products improve, whether it's products or systems or services, all the same. they become more perfect at delivering whatever the benefit is they need to deliver. I see people making photos. Please make sure that I'm on the photo too. And you can have my slides. There's nothing secret about this. If anything, I would spread the gospel. But so more perfect at delivering the benefit people expect from the product. This is usually where most innovators look, and only look. So how do I make it just more better at doing what it's supposed to do? Fine. It's also where all your competition tends to be looking. The other three are quite interesting. Making it more instant, which means it needs to be there when you want it, and it disappears again when you don't want it. So it's only there to deliver the benefit at the right moment. Very interesting sort of improvement direction. There's being more autonomous. Autonomous literally in the broadest sense of the word. So it doesn't need any fuel or any information or anything from the person enjoying the benefit to deliver the benefit. And then the last one becomes cheaper, maybe even free. And if you think about a lot of the digital transformation you've seen over the past 2 decades, they kind of deliver in all 4 of these spaces by removing the physical product from the equation and making it digital. This is the logic behind it. Now, if you think about circularity investments, it's no different. It still needs to deliver on all of these. Now, the reason I put the lawnmower on is just to make this really tangible for you, because my guess is no one in the room has ever worked in the lawnmower industry. Raise your hand if you have. No? Okay. Still, you can probably recognize a good lawnmower idea based on these principles. Because what does a more perfect lawnmower mean? Well, it probably means, I don't know, maybe some laser guidance system to create perfectly flat lawns, or ceramic blades that never go dull, stuff like that. More instant, more and autonomous. You can easily see how that goes together. That's sort of robotic lawnmowers. A lawnmower that only comes out when the grass is a certain height. One that charges itself. Maybe it becomes free because there's another model behind it. Instead of you having to buy your lawnmower, you only rent it whenever it's required. Maybe it has advertising put on it, I don't know. But I guess very quickly it pulls you into all directions, all kinds of directions to see how things improve. It also makes you think, what do people really want? Do people want lawnmowers? No, they want short grass. Which means probably the real innovation is in genetically modified grass seeds that only grow to a certain height or break off after a certain height. So what it gives you is like a timeline on how does improvement look, what does progression look like in this category, even without knowing too much about the category. And then you can judge, is the solution being presented to me, asking for my money, is it good enough? Or is this actually going to be trumped pretty quickly again by something that's obviously going to be better for one of these reasons? Let me give you an example of what this looks like in practice. Again, keeping in mind this is about using existing infrastructure. A lot of digitization so far has been about basically removing the physical product from the equation, but not necessarily improving upon where the original solution was. Here's an example of how AI, it's a word I don't use lightly because I think a lot of the AI talk out in the public's domain is rather bloated. But here's what it's a type of solution where AI is much more niche and much more specific in where it will work. So this is one of the crown jewels in our portfolio, Grey Parrot. And Grey Parrot, as you can see, works in the world of waste processing. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever been in a waste processing facility, but those conveyor belts often go up to like 5 meters a second, and there is a lot of trash passing by. It's different stages of selection, and there's a point where there will be, for example, like shown here, only bits of plastic are passing through, and a lot of that is packaging material. Now, how would this normally work? Normally, first of all, a lot of this sort of sorting happens manually, and if there is a robot, or a puffer, as it's often called, because it just blows the pieces away, there'll be a very expensive camera and lighting system with infrared and different, say, filters, and what it's trying to do is analyze exactly what kind of plastic is passing by. Now, the Grey Parrot solution is much simpler. It basically has the same type of camera you will find in a normal consumer camera, and it's connected, as you probably already guessed, to what was originally a face recognition system, which they've modified to become a plastics recognition system. And what is it recognizing? Well, of course, it's making an educated guess of, is this transparent or colored? But not beyond that. Then it looks for, is there anything in the shape, even if it's a crushed up bottle or something like that, that I recognize, so I can just look up in my database exactly what kind of plastic it is. So it can recognize whether it was originally a Coke bottle. Maybe it recognizes a piece of a L'Oreal logo or something. So it recognizes and then makes a much better estimate, or let's say a weighted guess on what the actual plastic was. But here's the great difference. Like every great technology democratizes because it makes things cheaper. Where the current solutions with lighting and expensive camera systems are like 200,000 to 300,000 euros to install, big investment, or you maybe use one in your whole waste sorting facility. These are 5,000 euros, which means you can put 10 in your facility and gain a way higher, let's say, resolution of, and a quality of that, of the material then coming out. And then there's a benefit on 2 levels. It's really interesting. So the CFO, literally, of the waste sorting facility will say, hey, this is great, because I can see the difference between 97% purity and 98% purity, which gives a great sort of market value when I resell this as feedstock back into the plastics industry. The other side is, if you're Coca-Cola, like shown on that picture, you need to know how much of your stuff is being recycled. The only way to do that, or figure that out now, is through sampling. It's very expensive and very hard to do. Now you can just give Grey Parrot a call and say, how many of our bottles have you seen in the past month, in the past year, in the past whatever? So again, this shows us sort of how those principles from the previous chart come together in a solution like this. Here's a last example. You probably all use or drink gin or gin tonic, stuff like that. Here's a product, nothing to do with Unaterra, but it's basically just to make the case. And then I'll show you an example of how that works for us. Alcoholic gin, great for mixes. It's basically how it's consumed most. And in the UK, Seedlip came onto the market with an alcohol-free gin. And beautiful presentation, great taste delivery. But and this is why they're so smart. It's basically tea. It's a very strong flavored water. That's what it is. But they were selling it at the price point of gin. So they get 2 types of benefits. First of all, the cost is much lower, but also the tax is much lower. And they still sell it at the same price as, thank you very much, Tim. They sell it at the same price as regular gin. So what does that mean? That means if you can take things out, but retain the price point, you have a commercial proposition which is very, very strong. And this is exactly why the circular economy is a great place to invest in, because you might have guessed already, a lot of the examples I'm sharing are actually about taking something out, less energy, less material, and retaining the price point at the level of whatever you're replacing, because you're always replacing something. Here's the example I'd like to share. It's a business I'm on the board of. They don't actually need any money right now, but we will invest in it from Unaterra as soon as they do, which is probably going to be another year or 2 out. This is a packaging for ready-made meals. And you're looking at that and you're thinking, oh my God, it's plastic, that's bad. No, it's a polypropylene monomaterial. It's the most recyclable material you can just about imagine. And their benefit lies somewhere else. So again, if you are too quick in jumping to conclusions, you miss the great bit in this case. So they have 2 major areas of benefits from a circularity point of view. First of all, way less waste, because the way this works is instead of cooking the product first, sealing it, and then pasteurizing, what you do is you put the raw ingredients in the tub, seal it, and then in a microwave tunnel, you cook it and pasteurize it in one go. So the amount of waste reduction in the production is huge. And this is not like just wasting some food that comes off a field. This is compound waste, as it's called. It's basically finished product you're going to have to throw away. But also the amount of energy is way less. You're literally going down from 40 minutes to about 7 minutes, and it's at least 30 to 40% less electricity use per recipe. Now, remember what I said, it's about taking things out, but retaining the price point. Now, how do they do this? It's what do you think happens to the food if you cook it only 7 minutes instead of 40 minutes? What happens? The taste is much better. So their whole proposition is better taste. They also get better shelf life, better, say, presentation, better quality control, better logistics, while using less energy, less waste, etc., and raise the price. So the benefit is one which actually would be almost unachievable for a typical packaging company, because they don't even think this way. They think either we're saving money and making the product worse, or we're trying to make the product better and making it more expensive. And this is, I guess, where, and from that point of view, as an investment fund, looking at young companies, the opportunity is, they are not burdened, you could say, by the internal structures in a lot of large organizations to make improvements like this. That's why it gets exciting. You'll be hearing from Doran in a moment, typical small business, doing things big businesses would never even dream of, because it doesn't even occur to them this is possible. So I'll keep you on that cliffhanger. So this is basically the story of Unaterra, moving from crappy non-circular products to really exciting circular products. It is not a paradox or a conundrum. It's just something which is, I won't say easy to do, because you do need to know what to look for. And I can only invite you to come onto the journey with, well, DN is, of course, our favorite partner and anchor investor in the fund. But we're, this is something we're going to do anyway, whether you join us or not. But it would be great to have more people on board with this. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you can take some of this home with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Costas. So we're going to see Costas in a minute on another panel after the lunch break, so save your questions, your big questions for that time while they're building for the next panel here. However, when we started talking to each other, I was really mesmerized by your energy, your ability to, what we talked about earlier, give people hope. What gives, to bridge the time, maybe tell the audience what gives you hope doing all these great things with Unaterra, and where did you get this from?
Well, on a personal level, I've moved, because I'm originally a product designer and engineer, moving from making things myself to understanding how to make good things, and then basically creating a team that can do it with me. And now taking that onto a path is, I think I can recognize good things, come and join me investing in them and making them work. What gives me hope is, and this sounds maybe like a negative reason for hope, is most of the big organizations, which I've worked with for 25, 30 years almost, are so dysfunctional. They are their own problem in making this step towards a more circular world. And luckily, there's a whole young generation of businesses coming up. I won't say necessarily the businesses set up by like 22-year-olds, but definitely the ones set up by the 30-year-olds who've sort of seen how ugly some of this world is and say, well, that's stupid, let's just start over. There's an entrepreneurial mindset amongst the young generation which didn't really exist when I was that age, which is frighteningly long ago. So yeah, there's everything to go for. What I've not even shared is the pipeline of investments we're looking at and the ones we have in due diligence, because they are superb. A lot of them are going to
make a huge impact with that.
Yeah.
Very happy that this is working. Thank you. We're going to see you on stage later again.
Yep.
And now I'm going to go to my last panel before the lunch break. Thank you, Costas.